There we go.
That was the problem.
That was the problem.
There we go. I think I get here and then I forget which one to click on. So in tune with the laptops.
Fix it. Or really make the problem much worse.
Right.
It's one or the other.
Right. Okay, now we wait till we get to here and then I click
There we go.
see because we'll have an echo because it's a slight delay. Okay, friends, we are in business. Kelsey, you can take it away and I'll count quorum.
All right, fantastic. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. It's February. So we are going to start our February 8th meeting with our usual welcome and introductions. We'll do this as usual, popcorn style. So introduce yourself, your pronouns if you would like, if your role on this committee, or this commission, and where your ward if you feel comfortable. So my name is Kelsey. I'm the vice chair of the Human Rights Commission. I live in Ward 4, and I'm gonna popcorn. We'll go in person to Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ostran-Ponchen. I live in South Salem. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a member of the commission, and I will pop it back to Zeke.
Hi, thank you. I am Zeke, pronouns they, them. I believe I live in Ward 3, and as of recently, I am a member of the commission. Oh, and I will popcorn to Lisa.
Zeke, my name is Lisa. I live, pronouns are she, her. I live in Ward 3, and I am a recent member, or brand new member of the commission. So very happy to be here. And I will pass over to Greg.
Hello, my name's Greg Azure. I'm new to the commission. I'm in my second term. I did serve some years ago, so glad to be back. I live in South Salem. I need to know what ward I'm in, but welcome everybody.
And then Greg, do you want to pick someone to go next?
Yeah, I gotta get my participant screen up here. Okay, Hope.
Thank you. My name is Hope. I am a member of the commission, pronouns she, her. I live in Ward 1, and yeah, I am going to popcorn it to Laura.
My name is Laura Fouts. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a resident of Ward 3 and a member of the commission. And I will pass it. I can't tell who's in the room. You guys are so tiny, but I think I see Lieutenant Aguilar.
Yes, very good. Hi, my name is Debbie Aguilar. I'm with the Salem Police Department, and I'm the liaison between the City of Salem Police Department and the Human Rights Commission. And I guess it just leaves both of you. So I don't, Gretchen, you want to go or whichever.
I'm Susan McNabb. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Ward 7, and I've been on the commission for like a whole year.
Yeah. I think you're right.
And back to Gretchen.
You bet. My name is Gretchen Bennett. I'm staff to the commission and use she, her pronouns. And Kelsey, yes, we have quorum.
That is wonderful news. We want to say thank you and welcome to the new commissioners. Very excited to have you on our team, and hope that you all just flourish and really help us grow as well. Okay, so moving into public comment. Gretchen, did we receive any public comment / are there any public comments?
We haven't received any to date, no.
All right. So moving to the consent calendar, is there a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting?
I so move.
Was that Susan?
Yep.
All right. It has been moved by Susan. Is there a second?
I will second it, Laura Fouts.
Perfect. Is there any dissent? All right. Seeing none, we approve that agenda. And then approval of the minutes from last week or last month's meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from last month.
All right. Lisa has motioned. Is there a second?
I'll second the approval. This is Greg.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Greg. Is there any dissent about approving the minutes from last meeting? All right. Seeing none, our minutes have been approved. All right. Lieutenant Aguilar, do you have a bias crime update for us?
I do. So we had one bias crime reported within this last month, and it was actually just reported on yesterday. It was in Northeast Salem, and it was graffiti. There was a fence along home that's been abandoned for quite a while. Part of the fence line was tagged. It had some hate symbols and hate language that was spray painted on the fence. We were notified. We actually our compliance services, who happened to be at the house dealing with some of the issues with the property, noticed the tagging, called us. We conducted an investigation and then contacted the graffiti abatement team to come out and clean the fence. The officer did a neighborhood canvass and did find some potential video evidence. So we're going to review that to see if we can identify suspects. So right now, for now, there's no suspects identified, but the graffiti was removed. And that was all I had as far as the bias crime report for this month. I will say that next month, I'm hoping within a week or so, I'll have a review or a year-end summary of bias crimes from 2022. So you'll be able to look at that, and then the next meeting we'll be able to ask questions. It probably won't be me though. So what we're going through at the police department is we have a couple of vacancies in our deputy chief rank. One of those positions has been filled with lieutenants who are acting in capacity. So for 4-month rotations, lieutenants have been filling that deputy chief spot to gain experience and just to see what the job is like. And so beginning in March will be my time to fill that position. So while I'm filling the deputy chief role, more likely than not, Matt Gill, he's a sergeant right now. He actually attended, I think, last time. He is going to be promoted to lieutenant on February 23rd. He was successful in the process. So he is going to take on a lot of my duties. So more likely than not, he'll be here and be able to provide you the information. And then I'll make sure he has all of my materials for the year-end review so he can pass that on to everyone and hopefully answer questions if there are any. Yeah, so that was all I had, unless there's questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Zeke.
I had a question. So you said hate symbols, like, do we know what like specifically we're talking about, like swastikas or like?
Yeah, so there were 2 different types of hate symbols. So the swastika and then the I forget to call it. They're called the SS. They look like lightning bolts.
Yeah, the SS symbol.
Yeah, those were the 2 symbols.
Do we know if there's any other presence of groups that may be promoting that kind of thing around the area or anything of that nature?
So I don't know. I couldn't say that there are any groups. I would imagine that there are individuals who potentially share that viewpoint. We certainly have seen people driving around with particular flags that I think there was one with a flag that had a swastika on it that was driving around. So we have seen incidents of that in the area, but I can't, because we don't have any suspects, I can't say if this particular graffiti is associated with any particular individual. But certainly I would say that there is definitely the potential that somebody with that belief system or group could potentially be in the area or in the community.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. This is Greg Azure. Regarding these groups that you mentioned, and is there any communication with these groups? How does the police department define the group, and then are they defined to the point that you know the individuals that are basically the leadership or the main individuals in those groups? Is that something that the police would have that information, or are these just groups that are urban legend or something?
Yeah, so we don't track those groups. We don't identify, we don't define what groups would be considered hate groups or not. If you look at Southern Poverty Law Center, they're a good place to look if you're wondering like what groups do they identify, but we don't. So, and we don't keep track of lists of who belongs to what group. So we wouldn't have that information on what groups are active here, what groups aren't. You can look through by graffiti and see that obviously with the swastika, there might be particular groups that use that symbol or use that symbol as part of their literature, but I wouldn't be able to say, well, this particular group is active here because we have this tracking mechanism. We don't do that. We don't track it. And then we don't look at groups and say, well, we identify as a Salem Police Department, we identify this group as a hate group, or we identify this group as a hate group. That's just not our role. So we don't take on that.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll move into complaints and concerns of discrimination. Gretchen.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I had two situations since the last period. And then I also tried to get some follow-up on the discussion that we had last month, but don't have any new updates. You might remember we had a conversation about accessibility and being able to have responsiveness and good access to equipment, but I don't have an update on that. But I'm tracking that, and I know you're interested, so we'll try to bring that forward as soon as I get that. I had a situation where a person was reporting concern that they were discriminated against based upon their race at a job site and was excluded from the opportunity to work at a particular job site due to race. We've had a couple of conversations and talked about the pathways that they have. They've got a fairly formal process underway. So I provided some information and support, but they have another organization in a lead role right now on investigating that. And then I also talked with someone who was reporting being a part of a court process and having a person in their family who was not being able to access the court proceedings. And they were explaining that they identified that as being due to the person's sexual orientation is why they weren't eligible to access court proceedings. And we were working towards trying to sort out the status of the person within the courts, not based on sexual orientation, but based on if they, regardless of sexual orientation, would they be a person who has access to the records? Because some people just by virtue of not being the plaintiff or what have you, doesn't get access to it. Right. Are they a party to it? That's a better way to put it. Susan mentioned. So we're kind of trying to sort out, would they be a party to the records regardless? There might be a misunderstanding about who's able to get information that we're trying to sort out. But those were the two situations that were new since the last report period.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Gretchen? All right. So seeing none, we will now move into the roundtable / 2023 work topics discussion. So Hamadi, Gretchen, and I met, I feel like it was 7 years ago, but it was like 3 weeks ago, to kind of discuss what we are wanting to pursue as a commission. So with new leadership, and we have a lot of new members, we want to give y'all the opportunity to talk about what you want to prioritize. So we wanted to open up the space to allow y'all to share ideas, brainstorms, issues, kind of just whatever you're thinking. I'll be taking notes, and I know Gretchen will be as well, just so I understand, like I remember what's going on. So if you all have any ideas, please share.
Kelsey, thank you so much. And especially with our newer members, I might offer just a couple of kind of grounding reminders.
Please,
yeah, you bet. We work within the scope of our Salem Revised Code, chapters 8 and 97. And for those of you who haven't been through an orientation yet, that essentially asks that we examine sources of tension, that we promote harmony within different groups of people, that we examine sources of tension, that we're a resource to people who experience discrimination or hate or bias. And that might look like holding conversations, it might look like gathering information, and it might look like making recommendations. So that, I hope that is in a very brief nutshell, kind of gives you a little bit of sense of the scope of what we do. We've kind of defined where we do those things, of course, not only in Salem, but also with awareness of the different identities that are listed in chapter 97, race, age, religion, gender identity, to name a few. So just to remember kind of the base or the guidepost for the conversation, but we can explore. A brainstorm should be very open. So you should feel free to share what's on your mind. And how did Hamadi put it? What fires you up, I think, Kelsey?
I believe that is correct.
Yeah. And then we can always refine the idea or figure out how it might fit. If we aren't sure, we can take that sorting in another conversation if you like.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gretchen. I really appreciate that. So if folks want to, if you have the option, you can choose reactions and then raise your hand, or you can just unmute, or if you're in person, shout it out.
Giving everyone else a chance to talk. I have a couple of things that we have talked about before as a commission. This is Kathy, by the way, if you can't see me. And I know the new commissioners won't necessarily have remembered those conversations, but that I would like to see through. One of them is we talked about, we had a training curriculum that we had looked at for us on different topics that I think would be really helpful. And something that we might want to talk about if we want to take another look at that and pursue some of those ideas. The equity asks, and I know you're going to give a report, Gretchen, later, but that document was very important to the people who were on the commission at the time. And I wouldn't mind going back to review some of those things in a little more detail just to see where we are. And if there's something that maybe not that we've missed, but if there's something we want to focus on more than some of the other things. And I don't know, I haven't looked at it in a while myself.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that I feel like it's important that we follow up on that. There's a couple of the thoughts, not necessarily anything new, just circling back on some things that have been before us before.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. I saw Zeke, and then we'll go to Lisa afterwards.
Thank you. I think something I'm very concerned about, and I kind of prompted why I decided to join the commission is it seems like there, at least in the past few meetings I've attended, there's been a pretty consistent presence of anti-Semitic graffiti in public places. I think like within at least Jews that I happen to know in Salem, I think there's kind of a sense that there's not really a lot of concern about that from the city. And I think like more visibility on the issue, and especially within the context of a school where, you know, likely it was a student who did that and they must have learned it from somewhere. So thinking about like education campaigns on that issue and then also others is something I would find valuable. But yeah.
Thank you, Zeke. Lisa?
Hey, everyone. So what I've been thinking about over the last month or so is my language, inclusive language. And I was recently given a book at the YMCA about inclusive language. And it was a real eye-opener for me because, you know, I feel like I'm an older person. I'm progressive. I like to think of myself. And I realized that I may have said something at some time that somebody would have taken offense at. And on the flip side of that, that has happened to me. If you've ever, you know, had someone say something to you, a random person that either made or broke your day, you know, I think, gosh, you know, could I have ever, you know, offended someone? So that's something I'm working on personally for myself. But it's something also that I think that perhaps the commission, as we go along, think about the words we use, and perhaps to the city council, if something needs to be changed, perhaps a recommendation can be made out of that. I'll continue to read the book and understand my mistakes and grow along with that. But I see that here in town too. And I just want to make it better. I want to do better. So thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Hope you unmuted.
Yes, I did. I was wondering, Lisa, would you mind sharing the title of that book? Because I would love to look into it.
I would love to. I don't have it handy with me, but
right.
if I send an email, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I can do that tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other ideas or general interests that give you fire, put a fire under you? Okay. And obviously this isn't just a one-time thing. We can talk about new things that we're interested in, new goals, and things that we're wanting to look at. So as things come up, please share them. Laura.
Yeah, it took me a minute to find my button. Sorry about that, Kelsey. I'm out of sync. But I would love to look for more opportunities. I think it seems like we're kind of doing it, but I'd just like to look for more opportunities to get feedback from the general public, you know, about what they're wanting to see in their community to feel more comfortable. I think that, and, you know, and engage in ways that are meaningful. So just looking for, you know, I know we're going to do the survey in tandem with the awareness task force, and I think that's good. And and I know we're doing a lot of things kind of in that vein, but I like that, and I feel like that is something that we should continue to pursue.
Great. Yeah.
This is Linnell. Is it appropriate for me to share something? I'm not a committee member.
You bet it is.
I love everything you guys are saying, and homelessness is one of my passions, but I feel like it connects to so many things about equity and being treated kindly and fairly and not being discriminated against. And you guys already have education plans, and it sounds like you're building on that in more broad ways. I feel like sometimes there's a big project that takes a lot of time and work and makes a difference. But I just wondered, I mean, this sounds like a sidetrack, but it connects. There was a little meme on Facebook that basically said, if you are using the word handicapped, it's no longer kind to do that. And what if you substitute the word accessible every time you're going to use the word handicapped? Because that speaks about the environment, it's not about the person being handicapped or disabled. It's about the environment is accessible. And when I read that, it made like a big distinguishing, like, how did I not think of that before? And I just wondered, like, if you guys chose to have a Facebook page where you share about the big projects you're working on, but if there's a meme here and there that can really, like, holy cow, I never thought of that. You could be present on people's minds about so many different topics that make them feel like, whoa. And it doesn't have to be, do I know who the HRC is? Do I know what projects they're working on? It's just their page is super cool because they make me think. And that could be for every topic of, minority or underrepresented people, certainly not just homelessness, but so many different categories where you can help people just in the middle of their day, just have an aha moment, like, why didn't I think of that? And I thought maybe that's something that is doable or considerable for you guys, because you're already doing the work, but how do you get on people's minds in a more daily thing? And sometimes it's just a meme that makes you think, like, I never thought of that. So that's it.
Thank you, Linnell. It sounds like maybe looking at some passive education opportunities, whether those are posters or utilizing the city's social media. And Gretchen, I don't know if you want to share about the city and like merging Facebooks and everything.
Yes, I'd be happy to. At one point, many years ago, the Human Rights Commission did have a small social media presence. I know we did Facebook, and we might have done Instagram, if I can remember correctly. And then the city there were many city social media pages, and the city tried to bring together into less accounts to try to reach a broader voice, essentially. And so the way instead of having one ourselves, as we're one of 18 commissions and boards for the city, so you start thinking about how very many there could be. What we have the opportunity to do right now is feed into suggested content into the city's pages, which has quite a big reach. And so that's an opportunity. I can re-explore the conversation. It's been quite a few years since we've explored that. And so depending on the interest to have a unique page, that if you have that strong interest, I can go back and check. And I do have a note already to do that from some conversations with Kelsey and Hamadi about would we want to reconvene our own page. I'll share another thing we're learning on social media generally is the way things are put together and phrased can make an enormous difference in whether it triggers a relatively educational experience or a relatively hateful debate. And that's something that I think we've learned and played with over the years. And there's an art and a science to trying to help inform and like Linnell said, create those aha moments of recognition and realization, but that doesn't spark a fair amount of content that I think everyone would say, oh, God, that's anti-Semitic or that, so there's a balance in trying to figure out how to do that as an organization. I think individuals have a different impact than public entities do sometimes. Yeah. So I don't know if that's helpful, Kelsey, or if that answered your thought.
Yeah, definitely answered mine. And yeah, that's always it's very tricky. But like we can definitely look at other opportunities as well. Other ideas that folks have.
This is Kathy. The awareness campaign task force, if that's still what we're called, has been talking about doing a monthly column. And I think all of these ideas, I mean, there's a lot of intersection here between what we're talking about and that, getting more word out there about the Human Rights Commission itself, about the things that are important to us and that we care about, things that we want the people in the community to know. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities here for that. And, I would love it if we could have our own Facebook page, because I think the city's Facebook page to me is different than the Human Rights Commission and kind of what our purpose is. But I understand why they don't want to have 18 different Facebook, social media accounts. But having something, getting more, just more word out into the community about the different things that we're working on. So, yeah.
This is Susan. Getting more out into the community. I'm on the awareness committee too. But I also think that we need to be aware that different groups of folks are going to use different kinds of media. Older folks, I have been told, are more likely to use Facebook. Younger folks tend to use Instagram or some of the others. And so the more ways we have of getting that message out there, I think the better off. So I don't think it's one size fits all. I think that we need to be, when we first started talking about a monthly column, I was thinking newspapers, but I don't know how many people read the newspaper. My children tease me that, I'm the only one they know. So who knows? But I think that if we use a variety of methods, we're more likely to reach more folks.
Thank you for that, Susan. I think that's always a good reminder that we are serving the entire city, and that's people of all walks of life.
This is Linnell, and I'm not invested on Facebook or not, but I do totally understand the need to balance education versus having hateful arguments. Yet I feel like Facebook has the opportunity to really, if you feel like there's something worth sharing as a possible aha moment, you don't even have to have comments allowed. And if people feel like they really need to comment, they can call Gretchen and say, what the hell? But I think because people will argue and find hate anywhere they want to. So maybe certain things just don't even allow comments if you feel like it's worthwhile pursuing it all. And if certain memes or educational materials might be worth sharing, but not worth having any discussion because it's always going to go downhill. That's it.
Thanks, Linnell. Anything else?
I just had a question about that. So is the city allowed to block comments on its pages?
Zeke, thanks for asking. This is Gretchen. I'm actually not sure. I found myself wondering that question as Linnell talked. I can check in with our team that supports our social media pages and learn more.
Great, thank you.
Great. Just to share with you all what Hamadi, Gretchen, and I talked about, we wanted to increase the visibility of HRC, which I'm so glad that there's an energy behind that. Looking at codes through an equity lens, connecting with more local organizations, filling our open commission seats, and then going to city council meetings as chairs or the commission, members of the commission. So we will add on what we talked about tonight. That's great. Anything else folks want to add? Zeke.
What, I don't know if anyone who's been here longer could speak to like what past partnerships with local organizations have looked like. Has there been any like success there, or like what sort of things have been done in the past?
Gretchen, that's you.
I'd be happy to, although, Greg, you predate me, and I've been with the commission 10 years now as of February 1st. But I wonder, Greg, if you'd want to share a little bit from your perspective.
Could you restate the question? I was doing some research there. What was the question again? What am I responding to?
What previous or like local organizations have we partnered with, and kind of what has that looked like? Is that correct, Zeke?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really qualified to, I do go back in history. I think my association with the city started when I was the Title VI program manager for ODOT, and that's when we first did the title. We joined up and worked on the Title VI program. But this being the capital city and state government right down the street, the city and certainly the different agencies have always had some partnerships, particularly around equity and inclusion, diversity, and those things. So the part of the city moving into the era here where we are formal and we're part of the government process. Unfortunately, I left for about 5 or 6 years here, so I don't know what's happened during that time. But I really think the association we have with the actual leadership and the organizations, those that work with the different the homeless and those individuals, certainly is an ongoing process, and that's something that Gretchen probably can speak to also. There's the different associations for blind and the different disabilities and on and on. So I don't know how formal those are. I think it would be something to explore, is how are we organizing ourselves around networking with those other groups that certainly support the same vision that we have for the city, and communicate and cross, I guess, have the cross conversations where we can plan events and work with them on the events that they have. So those are the partnerships I can think of that I know that activity's been taking place. Back in the day when Gretchen first started the position, the city had just began to really look inside itself at how they were dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the rest of the topics around the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So it's been probably this evolution within the last dozen years. So some of that path I was on, a lot of it I wasn't. So that's the best answer I can give, if that is an answer.
That's so nice of you to let me put you on the spot, Greg. And I think it's interesting and cool history. Thank you. Yeah, I can fill in. I can think of a couple of examples, and then I'd love to follow up and send you a document that the Human Rights Commission developed a few years ago. Like one example that comes to mind is I remember quite a few years ago getting to be a part of a discussion with several other people that led to the creation of something called Salem Capital Connections. The premise was to be able to identify people who maybe were in various identities, maybe had a particular race or ethnicity, for example, and was interested in contract work or grants, but maybe wasn't seeing or connecting into the process for being able to access grants or contracts. And so it led to this monthly networking space where we reached out to small or underrepresented group owned organizations and individual people, maybe who ran really small micro enterprises or businesses, for example, or who did work on their own. And then we brought in larger prime contractors and people from different governmental organizations that had contract money available or grant money or subcontract relationships available. And the whole idea was develop relationships, break down barriers, and facilitate seeing more business go to different people. There was also a time when the commission was really interested in going deep in understanding discrimination that might be faced by people who were Hispanic or Latino or Latinx. And I remember a partnership with a couple of community organizations and with Chemeketa Community College, where there was a forum held and there were some speakers and some open mic opportunities and some conversations. But at one point, the commission wanted to get fairly intentional about partnerships and about relationships. And so they developed what they called the liaison program. And so it essentially began with this large list of all of the entities or groups that might be out there, you know, some faith-based organizations, some cultural community organizations, a whole list. And then they tried to each sign up for some that they individually wanted to connect with. And so tried to reach out in much more personal and direct ways, like attending meetings, getting to know people in those organizations. And the idea was that maybe it would facilitate new partnerships or ways of working together, and that it would potentially facilitate hearing about discrimination or concerns, like to Zeke's point about, gosh, there's concern about the amount of anti-Semitic graffiti. You know, being more in touch with the synagogues, for example, might lead to us having a greater understanding of that, for example, you know, and so having people in a closer relationship with different people was the idea. It struggled to get off the ground in any kind of large way. There were some individual commission members that did some fantastic individual liaison that led to some good projects and conversations, but the limiting factor was just people's time. You know, each of you are volunteers and those take extra relationships and time. So thinking maybe about realistically about your time, but I'd love to send you the document because the commission put a fair amount of thought into the approach a few years ago. So I'll send it to you and that can be a further conversation if you like.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Gordon.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else for our brainstorming session?
I guess I'll ask this, Kathy. So what are the next steps? We have a list. I mean, is that going to come back at our March meeting, or kind of where do we go from here?
I think that's definitely that needs to be part of the plan. Rather than just speaking things out, we really need to follow up. So I think some action steps. So Gretchen's going to send out that document. I think the awareness task force they'll talk about this at their update, working on that survey to get public comments and feedback. But I think, yeah, kind of doing like a follow-up check-in on our brainstorm sessions or our ideas is going to be really necessary. So Hamadi, Gretchen, and I can make sure that that happens every meeting, or we kind of disseminate things to the proper task force if that is relevant. But yes, there will be follow-up, I promise.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you all so much. This was really great, and I'm very excited that we are going to work on these things. So we just talked about awareness. So moving to our task force and project updates, the awareness task force, and Laura, am I correct in that you are the new chair? No. Kathy, are you still the chair?
It's Joaquin.
It's Joaquin.
It's Joaquin.
But we don't see Joaquin tonight, so I don't know if any of the existing task force members wants to provide an update. I'm not sure.
I didn't prepare for that. I can kind of go up to, I think we talked mainly about what we've historically called the discrimination survey. We had Professor Bradshaw come in. We talked with her about changing it. Like we've essentially done the same type of survey for the last 3 times. We've gotten very similar results. And so maybe it's time to change what we're looking at. Still discrimination, but maybe change the questions a bit to get more specific information. And I don't know that we talked necessarily about what that looked like, but we talked about doing that. And so I don't know what else.
I could, unless you want to, I don't mean to.
Go ahead.
Couple of examples of that. One was, if there were questions specific to particular identities, she said we could do a little branching. Like if you wanted to ask questions unique to a particular group of people, that could be managed. Another thought was ask some follow-up about the discrimination reported. So for example, if people say, yes, I experienced discrimination, that there would be follow-up questions like, can you say where that happened? And then maybe offer some categories. Or can you like a couple of characteristics to help give the commission more of a sense of themes, you know, so that might help target your actions a little bit better. And then there was the idea, like Linnell is here and has been such a champion at sharing the survey with people who experience being houseless. Are there other champions in other groups that might similarly help with spreading the word and getting input from other groups of people as well? So thinking about that, I might add maybe one question that I think the professor put before us was, are there questions that any of you or the commission or the city, any questions that you're contemplating that it would be helpful to have information about? Like earlier today, I think one of you said something about how, I think Laura said, how does the community want to be engaged with? Like if you have a question like that, we could give those questions to the students and ask them to think about how to fashion survey questions that can help give you the information you want.
We also talked a little bit about the monthly column idea. And one thing that's been on our agenda for quite some time now is a position description for the Human Rights Commission that we could provide to people who might be interested in applying. That was one of my tasks, was to draft something up. I don't have that yet, but I'm planning on having it for the next task force meeting, and we can look at that and maybe get that out to the group. Otherwise, I don't remember anything else that we talked about. Like I said, I didn't look at my notes.
I think we talked just about how to reach more folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Those were the biggies.
Great. Thanks, y'all. Any questions or comments for the awareness committee or subcommittee?
And it just occurred to me, this is Susan again, it just occurred to me that I'm involved with Salem for Refugees, and I can certainly take this to them and see if they have a desire to be part of this. So
be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions or comments?
This is Linnell in the area of how to get more people to do the survey. I think you guys had discussed possibly renaming it or framing it a little bit differently. So maybe that's one of the things for consideration.
Linnell, this is Gretchen. Thank you. You're right. That was another robust part of the task force conversation, is maybe people opt out of the survey because they don't perceive that they've experienced discrimination, so they move along. And maybe there's ways of repackaging the questions in the title to help more people participate from a broader perspective. So I think something like, well, I can't remember, but there were some ideas explored. Linnell's right.
And I did
You
share some
observed
ideas
folks
with
being discriminated against, even if it's not you personally, but to see somebody else.
and this is Linnell again, but I think I sent a draft idea to Gretchen and Mary Ann, but one of the things kind of echoes what was it Susan just said something? I wondered if like framing it as livability focused on the aspect of the HRC roles but also maybe flipping the questions to show first, have you witnessed anybody else being discriminated against? Because that's relevant to everybody. If I feel like I haven't been discriminated against, but maybe I've seen it, and then put the questions about, have I been discriminated against, based more in the back, so that it might be more relevant to everybody, but also framing it differently. But I know that would be a whole different conversation for a different meeting, but.
All right. Thank you. I love these ideas. Any other questions or comments for the awareness task force? Okay, so moving on, the LGBTQIA+ Intersectional Rights Task Force. So we met and we talked about kind of working with the awareness task force about this survey, specifically what questions around the LGBTQIA+ identities and experiences are we interested in gathering using that survey. So we did some research and are brainstorming some questions and looking forward to that partnership there. We also brought up, so I'm sure you all remember that we talked about Chemeketa and their cultural competency certificate. So those classes happen on Wednesday evenings. And so we wanted to bring up not an idea or a suggestion, but just knowing that I'm sure a lot of folks in this group and viewing this YouTube are interested in taking the cultural competency certificate classes, but that would overlap with commission meetings. So we wanted to bring that up about if we wanted to discuss a date change or kind of what that would look like.
This is Kathy. Do we know yet? I know that the current cohort is on Wednesdays, but do we know that they're all going to be on Wednesdays, or is there a possibility that the spring cohort might be on a different night?
That's a good question. We can definitely ask that, because if that's the case, that could eliminate our problem.
I mean, I definitely was interested in participating, but I opted not to for this time around, thinking that there might be a possibility next time, but I don't know if they've gotten that far in the planning or not, but that might be worth exploring.
I'd be happy to check. That's a great point.
Thank you, Gretchen. Yeah. So do we want to put a pause on that until we know kind of what their spring cohort will look like?
I don't want to choose a different night and then have that night be a conflict. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Great. That is all I have written down for that task force. Laura or Gretchen, do you have anything else for that?
I wondered, Kelsey, if you wanted to bring up the question of being a subcommittee versus the full group. Amelia did formally need to resign. She just sent that note today. So I don't know, you're down to 2 members right now. So there was some discussion at the last meeting also about, is it time to expand membership and be a separate task force, or merge in with the full commission and then maybe spring up episodically based on projects? I think that was a discussion.
Yes.
And then also just some availability potentially of day space and the need for a provider with ability to provide sort of day center or group activities, maybe for young adults, youth and young adults who identify as LGBTQIA. I think that was also something from the night to offer.
Yeah, I think in regards to the space that you were talking about, I think it was a need for mentorship. Is that right? For mentors?
Yeah, that's right. Also mentors. Yeah.
Thank you for remembering those things. I have things written on my sticky notes, but that was not one of them. So thank you. So yeah, we did discuss kind of the structure of the task force, if it was enough to continue as a task force, if we wanted to have kind of event subcommittees, such as a subcommittee for the Trans Day of Remembrance. Laura, Gretchen, and I kind of discussed that if we have these projects, then we felt comfortable kind of moving forward. But that being said, we would very much welcome people to join the task force. So if you're interested, please send Gretchen an email. We would love to have you. So I see Lisa has a question or her hand raised.
Yeah. Hey, thanks. I just wanted to mention real quick that the YMCA has beautiful meeting space at no charge. So if there was a group that wanted to get together, I could arrange that pretty easily. So just let me know if there's a need and I can arrange it.
That's awesome. Thank you. Any questions, comments, or anything else for the task force? Okay, awesome. So moving to the Equity Ask and staff update.
Yes, this is me. And Kathy brought up the Equity Asks document, and I could work towards preparing a more comprehensive update where we bring the document back. I had a chart started with the task and then the status of it. So I could work on getting that updated again. For those of you who might not know what we're referring to, I can send this out. A bit ago, the commission identified a series of asks around equity. They were recommendations, ideas, of a whole variety of things. And I think 47 is the number that's coming into mind. So there's a whole list of things. So let me dust that off and offer you a more comprehensive update. What I brought tonight is one of the equity asks was around doing an audit essentially, or an assessment. And I know that was reaffirmed just recently with some consultant time planned to be able to do an equity. I don't know if the word is assessment or audit, but I remember that was one of the lines in the plan, and there's work underway to plan for that coming up now. So that's one of the things that's moving into an action step that I can share. I also, one of the items related to cultural gatherings, and that leads me to share that we had what I would say is a really successful Spanish resource fair last night. The city hosted an event out at Center 50 Plus with a whole bunch of information tables. And I was excited at how well attended it was. There was just a really good turnout, and a lot of people coming and having conversations at the tables and accessing information. So that was just held last night. I came to represent the Human Rights Commission. So I was there and had a few good conversations with folks that stopped by. And then on the staff update side, I wanted to update you that I need to return our meeting to a fully virtual or Zoom-based meeting for a time being. You might remember our policy doesn't yet provide for hybrid meetings until the city can achieve having that technology available more completely. Right now, we don't have that technology in enough conference rooms to make that available, and the city wanted to be, in recognition of all of our committees and boards and commissions, wanted to be sure that there was a fairly equitable access to that. And so until we achieved that technology, we were staying online. But then we had an accessibility request that moved us into hybrid due to that accessibility request, but then that's been withdrawn now. So I no longer have that. So we happen to have the ability to do hybrid here, but that's not reflective or consistent across all of our spaces. So long story short, what I need to do is return us to a virtual environment. But please do stay tuned. I was just encouraged today to see that there is work underway on expanding the ability, and then we could return to hybrid just as soon as the policy can open that door for us. So that would mean then we'd no longer open the physical space, but we would just undo the start of the Zoom again, as you all were used to. So we'll return to our Zoom-based environment for the time being. But that completes my staff update. I don't know if there's any questions or anything.
I have a question about the audit or assessment. Can you talk a little bit more? I don't remember that item specifically. What is that looking at?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of details, so I'm afraid I'd be speculating. I know it's something that the council requested. And it would look across our city at different aspects of equity. I think it's our practices, our policies, but I will guarantee you I'll speak wrong if I say too much. So what I have to do is get more detail as that starts to unfold. I don't know if they've developed a scope of work yet, for example, but I can find that. But they committed to it as part of the agenda as a short list of priorities for city council this year, that they want that to happen for the city. So, and they've called it an equity assessment, I believe is the phrase. So I figured that detail starts to become available. I'll be able to get more information for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Gretchen? Okay. Hope, do you want to talk about the community calendar?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So this month we actually have a lot of upcoming calendar events, which is pretty exciting. So the first one has already passed, but hopefully the calendar was able to be sent out and you all were able to see that. But that was a nonviolent civil disobedience training at the Kroc Center hosted by the Salem Keizer NAACP. So next is on March 11th, their World Beat teamed up with the Salem Art Association for an entertainment night and just to share lots of cultural entertainment and time for community. So that will be really exciting. If anyone wants to buy tickets, the calendar has a link to like more information and all that. And then on August 26th, Pride in the Park is going to be held. There's going to be live entertainment and food and vendors. And the night before, so August 25th, Salem Capitol Pride will also be hosting a queer movie night in the park, which will be very similar. It's just a time for community, and yeah, looks like it will be a lot of fun. So yeah, those are our calendar events that we have upcoming. Yeah.
This
Thank
is
you so
Kathy.
much.
Sorry,
Kathy.
just with Pride in the Park, I would love for us to have a table. We missed the opportunity this time around, but I think it's important that we have a presence there. So just keep that on the radar as we get closer to that.
Agreed. I don't think I have any vacation plans during that time, so the plan is to be there. That's great. Hope, thank you so much for putting that together. I'm sure that is a lot of work, and thank you. Any questions about the community calendar?
This is Laura, just a comment. Hope that's really great. It's nice and appreciate your work on that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for being interested in it. And thank you especially to Gretchen. She always sends along great events and it's super helpful. So yeah, thank you all.
Okay, so I think we are on our last agenda item, which is member remarks and announcements. Does anyone have any remarks or announcements?
The only thing I have, this is Debbie, I forgot to mention earlier, tomorrow I'm giving a presentation to the Salem Housing Authority on the Chapter 97 updates that the HRC moved through. So just to let everyone know, I'll be giving that presentation tomorrow for Salem Housing.
Thank you. Any other member remarks or announcements? All right, seeing none, I believe this meeting is adjourned.
Kelsey, thank you for